Hello everybody, welcome back to episode 17 of the Aviation Spotters podcast. I am your host, Colin Moser. I hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode with Jordan. I hope you guys learned a lot about him and a lot of what he had to overcome to be what he is now. He is really one of my best friends, and I hope you guys really enjoyed that episode. He does have some amazing stories. I know his father also had some equally amazing stories to tell. But with that being said, we are on episode 17 of the AvSP. This week, I have my biggest guest yet, and I think you guys are going to love what he has to talk about and all of his stories and how he got into photography and what he has, the endless list of photos that he has taken. He has been published in all the major publications such as Combat Aircraft Journal, Air Force Monthly. He has been featured in The Drive, The Aviationist, and a lot of Warbird magazines. He also publishes his own books, which we will talk about at the end. So it's my pleasure to introduce on episode 17 of the AvSP, Mr. Kedar Karmarkar. Kedar, how are you doing this morning?
Hey Colin, how are you? It's glad to be here, man.
I am so glad you're here too. Actually, a lot of people have been asking for you to come on the show and talk about just your photography in general. And I think a lot of people are going to love what you have to talk about today.
Cool.
All right, man. Well, let's start rolling into it. Let's get to know you a little bit, man. Let's tell us about yourself. How did you get into photography and just kind of where you're from and all that?
Yeah, sure. So I am from, originally I'm from India. I'm from Mumbai, which is on the west coast of India, which is kind of like New York City, but New York City is more like known for financials and that kind of thing, stock market and all that, Wall Street. But Mumbai is kind of like melting pot of everything. It's got financials, got music, cultural, food, international stuff, whatever. So back in the day, again, born into a middle class family. Obviously, there was no internet when I was growing up. But I did have some good interest in I developed some good interest in like the dogfighting stuff, especially World War II stuff. I used to read the Commando comics that were available, on a small bookshop on the street, if you will. And then I started to, those were like short stories of World War II, short sketch stories. And then I started to develop more deeper interest. I used to read like some serious books about military aviation, the development, and kind of was like really into the technical stuff. Of course, I was encouraged a lot by my parents, and my uncle as well. Even though I was a single kid, the only kid rather in the family. But then, so the plan A was to kind of join the Indian Air Force. Obviously, in those days, there were no air shows, and again, being in a middle class family, we couldn't afford a luxury like cameras and photography, which were like really expensive. So obviously, the plan was to just join the Indian Air Force. Obviously, that didn't happen. So plan B, I went to work in the IT sector, and then fast forward 99. I found myself in Sunnyvale, living in an apartment under the flight path of the Moffett, Hercules and Pavehawks, and I was like really like blown away because and then in fact I came here in May '99, and June or July there was an air show in Moffett, and I was like literally like a kid in a candy store because whatever I had read about was all there to touch and feel, and I could talk to the crews and all that stuff. So this was like reality, and I was like, wow. And I had a small camera then, like a Minolta whatever fixed lens stuff. Then I bought another Minolta DSLR. Not a DSLR but SLR, obviously. And then got some lenses, and then I started tweaking, and you won't believe like the earlier shots that I had, those were like frozen props, all auto mode or whatever. I had no clue of photography. But then going to air shows around local like San Francisco or Salinas, I kind of got in touch with a community called fencecheck.com, which was really kind of a boost and really developed my style of photography, because there were, especially like some of the influential folks, there was a guy called Glenn Bloor. He still is, I think, in Santa Monica, like somewhere in SoCal. Larry Grace was there, and then there was a local guy called Taka. They, especially Glenn, like I used to trade, or we used to exchange post-processing stuff. Like, hey, I shot this, picture, and I just did, this kind of treatment to it. What do you think? And we used to have like, kind of back and forth on that. So that's when, like, and then, with fence check and all that, that's when I kind of started going to air shows, learning about photography and all that. So that's what got me into it.
Awesome. So you are a self-taught photographer then?
Oh yeah. And digital helped a lot, because I got that first Olympus, like a semi prosumer camera, they called it, with all the aperture, shutter, exposure and all that buttons, and it also had the P mode and the A mode and all that. But that's where I learned the whole relation between the trifecta, right? The aperture, shutter, and the exposure and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve, especially back in the day with the old SLR cameras. For example, my old Pentax, when I first started shooting back in 2010, we had an adapter to use my grandfather's old Pentax lenses from the 60s and 70s. And me being the curiosity guy and the self-taught photographer I went out to the airport, and I was using a 200 millimeter that was meant for like an old film Pentax,
Right.
and I had to do all the aperture and stuff and the focus all by myself, because it has no autofocus motor in the lens. That kind of taught me also to really learn what an aperture is and how to deal with the lighting and all that. So
Right.
I think a lot of self-taught photographers really have done a lot more for the community, because it's just like we have to we learn this by trial and error. And there's a lot of shots that I regret that I was in my early days. I completely agree with you when you said the early days were not good. You look back on that, you're like, man, I wish I was really good back then, because you miss a lot of stuff that doesn't exist now.
Oh yeah, exactly. I think it's every photographer's pain point, that hey, wish I could time travel in the past with the technology of today, right?
Exactly, man. So real quick, so you brought up a lot of World War II stuff. I know you do a lot of air-to-air with a lot of Warbirds, which I absolutely enjoy seeing. Were any of your family members in the Second World War as veterans?
That's a good point. I had literally none on my father's side or mother's side. No one was anywhere near aviation, and so that's why even in my family, people are like, "How did this guy get in this family?" Because I really had an obsession, if you will, with all the planes, and especially my subjects are either military aviation or warbirds. That's it. I don't do civilian or general aviation or whatever it is. I might do commercial traffic or whatever, or civil aviation, just because I'm there. But I won't get up at 4 o'clock and go to an airport to catch some new airlines or whatever.
No, that's fair, and that's definitely, commercial aviation isn't everybody's cup of tea. I mean, you have people that just solely shoot commercial, not military,
right?
And
Yeah,
it's vice versa.
Exactly. It's to each his own, right?
Yeah, and you brought up the point of how your parents really got you into aviation, and my parents did the exact same way. I wouldn't be into aviation without the help of my dad. You've been posting a lot of mountain home stuff from 2008 on your Instagram and Facebook.
Right.
And my dad, there's a photo of me and my dad back when I was young, like 1999, 2000, about 4 or 5. There's a photo of him with me on his shoulders at Gunfighter Skies.
Nice.
At Mountain Home, in 2000, 2001. So, without my father, I really wouldn't be the aviation nut that I am. And, this hearing kind of a similar story with me is, your parents got you in. My grandfather was in World War it was in the Navy, and that's really the extent of aviation for me. So, I mean, I really can relate to you with being self-taught and not a lot of aviation in the family.
Right.
So I think that's really, really cool. Real quick, growing up in India, so you didn't even really start taking photos, because I said no cameras and stuff like that. Do you still go back to India every so often to take photos out there?
Exactly. I do. Especially when I was growing up, there was no air shows or whatever. So obviously no cameras, nothing. But I think even now when I go to India, and again I think I did hear that on the earlier episode with Sandeep about spotting, and all those things from the road or from the public areas or whatever. I just don't do it because it's just not worth it. First of all, like I'm there for whatever two weeks or whatever leave I have. I'm there for only a short amount of time, and I have to see like other relatives and friends and all that stuff. And with that going on, I just don't want to invite like any kind of trouble. And I would rather kind of encourage the same thing, like even for you guys. If you go down to India, it's not the same as shooting from here outside Nellis or outside SFO or San Jose. I wouldn't do it, and I would encourage you guys not to do it as well, because it just puts you into a whole lot of pain, unwanted pain, really. And
Exactly.
yeah, and the thing is, I don't blame the guys as well, because it's just the geopolitics and the security situation that we have back in India, that we cannot distinguish our enemies just by the the color of the skin or whatever it is. So you might do photography there 2-3 days, and if you wanted to get a shot of some rare airliner or whatever, but that same spot might be used tomorrow by a guy for 5 minutes who can just pitch up something and think, or appear as if he's a photographer and use that for some ulterior means, So that's why, like, I like, kudos to the guys who do it, right now, but I don't do it just because the other thing is, even if I get into trouble, I might, like, I will have to call someone or my friends in the Air Force or whatever, and they will have to kind of, unnecessarily come down and, use that credit for an unnecessary thing that could have been avoided,
Yeah.
So, I just don't do it. Whatever I shoot, that's with the permission and whatever the access and all that stuff. It's all squared out before I go there.
That's really well put. Is you have the connections, and then you get the permission well in advance. So if they come up to ask you, like, hey,
right,
we have this person said it was okay, and then, but yeah, that's one of the things I really talk about with Sandip is about all that. And like I said, just how privileged that we are in these sort of countries that we're in, to go out to an airport and do what we can
exactly.
do. But this is kind of for my own kind of personal thing. So you were in India during the Indo-Pakistan War, right?
In fact, in 1999, when the whole problem started, I came here. Like, the whole problem started in May 99, and I came here just during that time. But then the actual the war and then fight actually happened later. In the same year, but later in the month.
Okay, I was just curious and all that, because I'm a political science international major and all that, so I just kind of find that geo stuff really interesting. Anyway, before we lose a lot of viewership, I start going on a tangent. Let's keep it aviation. But real quick, man, do you have any other hobbies outside of aviation photography?
I used to fly. I learned flying in 2005, and I used to fly till 2017. That was a good hobby I had. And then I used to play like the Indian drums called the tabla.
Cool.
Yeah, like it's just kind of like something of a break that I used to take. But right now, like these days, it's more of reading books about like both my work and some of the defense aviation topics. And the other thing is trying to keep up to date with what's happening on the post processing world, right? Lightroom coming up with some new tools or whatever, and I sometimes like try to dabble around. Hey, can I use that, or how can I use it? whatever. So yeah, just kind of a smattering of things.
That's pretty cool that you're able to play the drums and all that still. And I think you posted a video a while back of you doing that, and that's always cool. That's always cool to just, to see that culture and all that. And like I said, the episode with Sandip, I do love the Indian culture and all that. And I think that's really cool. One last question before I move it on. Do you have a home airport for you? Because you don't really do a lot of airport spotting besides maybe a red flag, but you're usually all over the place. So do you even have one?
Yeah, so exactly. As I said, even though San Jose is like the nearest major airport for me, but again, since I don't do the civilian stuff or commercial stuff, I don't go trying to take pictures of civilian stuff, even in like SFO, for example. So yeah, I don't have like a home airport for spotting or whatever, because again, civilian stuff is off my interest list. So yeah, I'm just there, wherever interesting military stuff or warbird stuff is happening, and that's it. Yeah, so yeah, more like a gypsy rather than a fixed guy.
Well, that's completely fair. I mean, if anybody that follows you, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers or a lot of the listeners out there do, I mean, they'll understand.
Right.
But that's a completely fair answer. So let's move on to cameras. So you said you started out with an Olympus. Kind of what else have you used in the past, and what's your current setup now?
So I started with like even before Olympus. Olympus was a digital step into the digital world. But before that, I had a Minolta, and I used to shoot film. Then I used to shoot slides as well. And then from there, when I actually made the serious jump, it was with the D70 from Nikon. Back in the day when I made that move, because at that time, I was changing Minolta anyway, and I was evaluating between Canon and Nikon with the D70 was kind of more superior at that time. So I stepped into the Nikon world, into the dark world, as people would say. So it's been like, I've used like D70, D3, D2XS, D200 as well, I think, and then D7000, 7200. But then right now I use a D850, that's a full frame, and a D500, which is a crop. And I'm experimenting with the mirrorless thing with the Z7.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How do you like the mirrorless so far compared to the DSLRs?
Yeah, so especially on the Z7, I think I bought it last, I think 2019 or something, late. And I did try it out at some of the playoffs, some of the events, but I think it's not exactly there yet for the type of shooting that I do, especially with kind of like the fast focus, fast panning and all that stuff. So it's not yet out there. And then the other thing is like it's not snappy like the DSLR, like with the or even the feel of shooting, right? Even with the DSLR that we have, or I have right now, it's more like more full in it feels more full in the hands, like the grip and the size of the body and all that. So like beginning with just a sensory feedback, if you will, it's different. Even the performance is different. So whatever I do in a DSLR, I can't just like copy paste that stuff into mirrorless. There is a certain amount of getting used to that's there in the mirrorless system. So as far as whatever I have shot, there are good points. Don't get me wrong. Like static stuff or the what they call the EVF or whatever, that adjusts according to whatever settings you do, so you see the result before you actually shoot, before you take the picture, which is great. Then even like I have done some like video, for example, that is way easier on the mirrorless, because now you can watch the things in the viewfinder and you can still record that, unlike the DSLR where you have to do it on the LCD, which is again not the natural position. But I think from a lag perspective, From a focus sharpness perspective, I think the Z7 is not there yet. Now I do hear a lot about like the focus improvements in the Z7 II or the Z6 II that's launched. But I'm kind of reserving my or saving my money for the next gen Z7 or whatever that Nikon will launch probably this year, which I expect the focus to be much more like in line or in par with at par with the D850.
I do think that the future of photography, digital photography, will go mirrorless. It's just so new right now that a lot of it's focused on like the portraits and the landscapes.
Exactly.
Not a lot of.
Exactly. I think those are good for like the street photography, the low light, portrait, landscape, wedding, because that's where the money is, right? Aviation photography, I don't think so. There's a lot of money.
No, I don't think Nikon or Canon really care about us. But the future is mirrorless, but it's just how long will it be before a company will make a camera that will suit our needs? High shutter, high refresh rate. Right. But I mean, it sounds like the basics of it are there. Right. It's just like you said, we have to wait for the right camera to come along. So what lenses have you used in the past and currently use right now then too?
Lenses in the past, obviously I used to use a 18-200, the general purpose Nikon lens for quite a while, and then I used to use the 80-400 for my airshow stuff. And then when I started to do air-to-air, initially I started with the 70-200, the 2.8, and then I went from that 18-200 to a 24-120. So right now, the mix that I have is, especially for an air-to-air shoot, I will go with a 24-120 and then an 80-400 because so the 24-120, which will be wide, will be on the full frame, and then the 80-400 would be on the crop. So that way I can basically cover 24 millimeter to 600 millimeters, right? Using those two bodies and lenses for the air-to-air shoot. For the ground shoot, I have like a 500 f4, and then I got a 400 2.8 as well, and that was just to basically also experiment with like a 2x converter, and a 800 5.6, if you will, right? But again, like I would, like the image quality is not exactly, or maybe like I'm spoiled with the prime lenses because obviously with the 5.6 and the teleconverter, there is some degradation in the quality. So I would use like 500 or 400, like depending upon like the low light. So if it's going to be like twilight or dusk, like after sunset, I will carry the 400 2.8 because that's just a faster lens, more wide than the 500. But then I also have the 200 500, which has been a really great lens for the price. I think it's half the price of an 80-400, but it is a really, like, it has been actually like great for me in my photographic journey, even though it's like kind of cheap than the 80-400. So I think those are the lenses, like it's the 200 500, the 80-400, the 70-200, and then the 24-120 is my general purpose wide angle lens.
That's real interesting how you do that, especially like pairing the lenses with the current conditions and all that, and how you're able to do that on the air-to-air portions and the shoots and all that. That's really interesting. Right. Kind of speaking of air-to-air, so what got you into the air-to-air photography?
Yeah, that was a chance meeting in 2008. I was there, and then there were a couple other folks. Taka, who was there, who lives local. And then there was another guy, a Japanese guy called Atsu. He used to live somewhere in the Midwest. But we three decided to go to Quebec in Canada for their 400 whatever anniversary air show or whatever. So we land there. Obviously, we don't speak French, and literally, like it was fun during the first couple of days. like whenever we used to plan to have like lunch or dinner or something, we used to like go to a McDonald's, and we used to do what we call the point and eat. It's like I want that one, like point at it, right? And then they will understand. Okay, you want that, like okay. Instead of like trying to converse them with like French or whatever. But we met a guy called Eric Kokelsbergs during the air show. Like he was there shooting with his Canon, and then we got talking. And great guy. We kept in touch. We used to like regularly email back and forth. And then in 2010, he first, I think he organized an air-to-air shoot in Belgium, and he had invited me, and I was planning to go, but then there was some emergency on my side, and I had to cancel. But then I went in 2011. That's when the first time when we had that the air-to-air stuff, and there were like the Warbirds, and then there were like few other civilian general aviation stuff, just for subjects for us to shoot. And that's when I kind of call it like a drug, because once you taste that thing, then you really want to go back into it like every time, or then you start getting withdrawals if you don't do like some air to airs or whatever, at least for me.
No, I'm the same way. My last air-to-air shoot was like August 2016, and I haven't done one since. And I'm going like, I would really like to do that again.
Exactly. So, it's a totally different feeling, perspective, totally different world.
It is, and you get a lot of more of artistic shots, and I think kind of people who like doing air-to-air also like doing the low-level stuff too, because it's like the backdrop and all that too, and just the conditions. You can get such a unique shot that you can solemnly get it at an airport. I mean, like how my only air-to-air shoot was with a Javron Carbon Cub and a Harman rocket, and it was. I mean, I have some of my favorite photos that were taken were from that day, but. So you've done a lot of not just Warbird air-to-air, and you also done a lot of military air-to-air as well. So this kind of question is like, kind of what's your favorite airport and airplane to spot? Well, I'm going to kind of reword that question because, like we already established, you don't really airport spot. So out of all your air-to-air shots, because I've seen you done stuff with the Greek Phantoms, you've done it with Vader with the Belgian F-16 solo display, you've done a lot of stuff with the Ericsson Aero Collection. I mean, you've done so much. What has been your favorite air-to-air shoot that you have done over these years?
So I think the most favorite, I would say, was in Wichita, in Kansas, when we went to shoot the B-29 called Doc, which is the world's second B-29 which is flying rather. And the reasons, obviously, I think, it was the third or the fourth flight of that B-29 when we did the air-to-air with it. And especially like the way it happened was, it was supposed to be a sunset shoot, but then the crew was like, you know what, we will fly in the afternoon, which is again bad for air-to-air because the light is at its harshest.
Yeah.
But they were like, we'll fly in the afternoon and we'll get you some shots and all that stuff. And then we'll land and we'll check her up. And, if she can still go at like the sunset, then we can still go. But if she breaks, then at least you have something in the bag. And we are like, okay, fine, no worries. So fortunately, nothing happened, and then we went out in the at the sunset time. But then the best part about that being my most favorite was, first of all, it was the B-29, which is a Warbird. The second, obviously, the light. It was sunset. It was beautiful. Great weather. And I think the third one, and then what we call kind of last but not the least, was I was shooting with Paul Bowen, who's kind of like a pioneer as well in the air-to-air photography world, and he's just I don't know what to call it. Like, it's like the best human being and the epitome of humility, because I was shooting with him, and he was, sitting, going, prepping for, going up. and he asks me like, "Hey, do you want to call the shoot?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm with you. You are kind of like the king. I would rather have you call this, call the shoot, and I would rather learn, how you do it." And he was like, "Yeah, that's fine, but let's let's have you call as well." I'm like, "Okay, fine. Let's just go and then we'll see. We'll wing it." So we went ahead, and I saw the whole like the way he moved the aircraft around, and sometimes he moved the photo ship around, because obviously the B-29, it's a huge aircraft. It's not like agile. It's not like, hey, I want you to go like 5 right, and it's like in 2 seconds it's whatever, 5 right or 10 right or whatever, or up down. So sometimes he used to move the photo ship itself just to get that right shot, and then at the end of it, he asked me like, "Hey, is there any other angle that you need?" And I'm like, "Yeah, there's one more, and that's like a head-on angle. I want a head-on angle on the B-29." So he's like, "Yeah, okay, I got it." And then he moved it so brilliantly that we got my shots, and I think that's one of my favorite shoots of all times, just because of the subject, the time, the light, and obviously who I was with. I got a lot of learning in that time frame. So that would be my favorite one.
That is absolutely incredible. I think I've seen some of those photos, and our listener would have seen those from the kind of teaser photos that we posted of that. But man, just being able to do something like that, I know that's on so many people's bucket list, especially just with that aircraft too, the second B-29, just newly restored. I mean, if you guys want to know some really cool stories, if you haven't listened to the episode yet, go back and listen to episode 7 with Nick Moore. He is from Wichita, the Wichita area, and he actually was a part of the first flight stuff, and he has done a lot of stuff with Doc as well. So if you guys want to go hear some cool Doc stories, go back, listen to episode 7 with Nick Moore. But that, man, that's awesome. I wish I was there. But real quick, we talked about your favorite air-to-air shoot you've done. Just in general, what is your favorite airplane of all time?
The flying or not flying?
Both.
I think the top of the list is the SR-71 Blackbird. I don't think so anything else will be made. Whatever however it was made, the design and all that stuff. I think that's like at the top of the or the whatever, right at the summit. That is my favorite. Then the second one I think is the F-14 Tomcat. That's awesome. And then obviously there are others who might be like ties or whatever, like the Viper or the MiG-29. The Raptor, the F-15, Eagle as well, right? So yeah, the list goes on after that. But I think right at the top of the chart, the Blackbird, and then the Tomcat, and then followed by the others.
Have you been over to Iran by chance to go see the F-14? So I know you've done a lot of stuff with an organization called COAP. And I know COAP organizes a lot of trips that take you to certain areas around the world to go do a lot of photo tours. And I know you've done a lot of stuff with COAP. So kind of a two-part question is, have you gone over to see the Iranian F-14s, and the other two sides, kind of what is COAP?
Right. So at least for the first part of the question, I haven't been to Iran to see the Tomcats, and just because again I'm here from the US, and again I'm not a citizen and all that, so I just don't want to get into unnecessary crap. With all the other stuff that's going on. So that's that. But obviously, I have been to I went to Oceania in fact when I was shooting film, and I've lost those negatives as well. But I went down to Point Mugu, and I did have some pictures of the F-14 Tomcats there. And I think I was there when the QF4 Phantom crashed as well. The crew couldn't eject. That was very sad. at that time. But I have some shots of the F-14 Tomcat from my digital side, which was I think 2004 I believe. The VF-101 guys were there in Nellis. So I think 2004 or 2005 I think I have some shots from there, and then I went to Oceania in 2006, which was kind of the last appearance of the Tomcat in the air show. So I have some shots of that, but yeah, nothing from Iran or whatever. And then coming to answer the second part of the question is the COAP. So that's Center of Aviation Photography, and that is still run by Rich Cooper and Steve Comber from the UK. And I think the core idea is to have 7-8 like a group of 8 or 10 people go do something totally different, like a base visit, or go to like for instance, for me to figure out ways and means in Russia and all that stuff is kind of too much time consuming or whatever, or I don't have the right contacts or whatever. So I just went with COAP to Army 18, which is kind of like a defense exposition, like kind of like the Farnborough or whatever, or the Paris Air Show, right? They have the Army 18, like kind of Max, which is again like there. I think Max can be compared to the Farnborough and Paris, but Army is something like I don't know. It's another defense exposition where a lot of people come, and then they have their exhibitions as well. So I went with those guys, and in fact it was kind of good because we went to. I think we had one day at the airfield. We had the second day at the tank range and all the defense exhibitions, and then we left, and then we went to Radom in Poland, where they had the air show, and then we kind of flew back. So it was kind of like a quick trip. But then here in the US, I've done the Key West with those guys. That was a base visit over there, and then I think in the last one it was. I think it was supposed to be like I've done like with the Dutch air to air with the Dutch guys in Tucson, and then Nellis, Fallon, those kind of visits. So yeah, so it's kind of like a group, but doing something kind of laid back, but it's kind of packed agenda as well. Even I went to that Barry Goldwater range in near Tucson or somewhere. Where we did some shooting of the A-10, using its guns and all that stuff. So yeah, that group is pretty good. And then obviously with the pandemic and all the travel restrictions, Rich is I think kind of floated the COAP online, which is kind of a revamped version of the previous COAP. And I think the registration or something opens up in February, so that would be kind of like a good way to kind of travel around and see the world with similar minded people, right?
And with some amazing photographers.
Yeah, exactly. And trade stories, share techniques, and obviously all those things.
And Rich also does the photo side for the Fighter Pilot podcast as well.
Right.
So that's actually kind of cool that you and I actually kind of met. I wasn't a part of the COAP trip, but I believe you were, and at the Star Wars Canyon in 2019 in March, when I don't think I've ever seen that place more packed than it was those couple days, because you had on your camera bag a wild boars patch.
I don't know, because the last time I was there with in the Star Wars Canyon with the COAP guys was 2016. And after that, I have been there on my own, pretty much.
Okay, so So it may not have been COAP then, but I believe in March 2019.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah, because you had a wild boar sticker or a patch on one of your bags, and I was like, hey, I'm from Spot at Mountain Home and all that, and just kind of start talking and all that. But
right.
So that's COAP, guys. If you want, go check them out. I highly recommend if you want to go on some amazing photography trips and learn a lot about aviation photography and have the money to spend on it, go check them out. And yeah, But moving on is, I'm assuming you don't even have a least favorite aircraft to take a photo of, because, I mean, for you, it's just kind of you take a photo when you do, and they're all really, like, every frame counts in a way then.
Yeah, exactly. It's every frame counts, and then if you, for me, it's like tweaking around, and basically, like, for me, when I take a picture, it's to evoke an emotion. It's not like a documentary picture that, okay, click, I got that documented and off to the next one. So that's what my kind of driving reasoning is behind how I kind of process my photos.
Okay, so what about the rarest aircraft you've ever taken a photo of?
So the rarest one in today's times would be, like, I think that's the Ericsson Aircraft Collections, the Nakajima 43 or the KI 43 Oscar. I think that's the world's only Oscar which is flying with those guys. So I would say that is the rarest shoot, I would say. In fact, last year when I went over to Madras, I was there. I was sitting freezing my butts on an SBD dive bomber, sitting in the back seat, with the kind of swiveled, looking towards the tail. Or yeah, that's right. And then we were near, I think, Mount Jefferson, because we were kind of like trying to take, like, simulate Mount Jefferson like Mount Fuji, and take some shots with the Oscar over there. So yeah, I would say that is the most rarest, because you find other specimen like everywhere, like even the B-29, it's got two, which is flying. But in this case, the KI-43, I think that's the only specimen which is flying in the whole world. So that would be the rarest. And then maybe the second would be the XP-82, the twin Mustang. That's right.
And the twin Mustang is being moved up to Madras too, right? Is that correct?
I have no idea on that one. I think it was supposed to be. It was on sale. That's what I heard. The last of it, that Tom Raleigh and crew who really restored her beautifully. I think they had it on sale last year. That's what I heard. But I don't know if they found any someone in the US or somewhere else that it got sold or whatever. So I have no idea on if that is the one which is going to Madras.
Yeah, your XP-82 photos, I think, personally, are the best photos you've ever taken that I've seen from you so far. The sunset over the scenery that you took it from, with the world's only flying example of the XP-82. It's just like, holy crap!
Thanks. Yeah, that was a fun shoot too. Like we all just went to, I think, Douglas in Georgia. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was kind of 3 hours from Atlanta, and it was like really somewhere in the middle of nowhere. That it was, but it was fun.
And also, you've been posting a lot of mountain home shots from 2008, and we were kind of talking in the pre-show about just you posted a photo of an Aleutian 78, as I was corrected on with the episode with Sandip. It's not a 76, it's a 78. But you posted one, and there's a very distinct hangar at Mountain Home. Mm-hmm. One of the old World War II hangars, it says Gunfighter Country. If you ever go out there for the Gunfighter Skies Air Show, you'll see that hangar. It's a very old hangar. And you post a photo of the Aleutian head-on with the Gunfighter Country in the background, and I think I love that photo. It's just so cool to see a Russian-built aircraft sitting in front of the most iconic hangar at Mountain Home Air Force Base.
Yeah, I was like, this weekend, I was just like going down memory lane, trying to apply some new techniques to the old photos. And I still remember, July 17th, that's the day when the Sukhois landed at Mountain Home Air Force Base. And I was there, in fact, according to my escort, she said that they will be coming at 9:30 or something. So we said, okay, we'll be here by 8:30 at the gate. Sort out the papers, and then we'll get you before they come. But while I came at the gate, I could see them in the overhead, and I'm like, shit, I was like, damn, I could have, gotten them landing, but I couldn't. But then even she came, hurriedly, and then she, got me on the ramp as soon as she could. And then it was just awesome, just to see, the Sukhoi at a American Air Force base. And then the best part was when the 390th, when they were still flying the Eagles, they were going out on a training sortie. And so I think the 390th were like right at the other end of the ramp, and there were like 3 or 4 Eagles that I have in my shot as well, that were kind of taxiing, for the active runway. And as they kind of neared the Sukhoi, like you could tell that the rate, the speed at which they were taxiing, it kind of reduced, and then they wanted to get a good look at the Sukhoi. So it was kind of surreal at that time. But it was fun. It was like good days back at Mountain.
I really we were just talking about a couple minutes ago about back in the early days. Man, I really wish that I was into spotting. 3 years earlier, and I would have been able to go out there and see Russian-built Sukhois at Mountain Home Air Force Base. And I can guarantee those pilots, because those pilots, they were trained to shoot that aircraft down in the event of a war.
Right.
I mean, that's probably the first time that they've seen one of those things in the flesh.
Right, exactly.
And it's like,
exactly, yeah. So everyone was kind of like, like, holy crap, it's the Sukhois. And yeah, exactly. It was good. It was good fun.
Yeah. I keep looking at those photos, just like, oh man,
yeah, like even I have like kind of the same feeling that you have. I think that the golden era of aviation, like especially military aviation, would be like kind of like the 80s till the 90s, where you had a whole lot of different airframes doing different kind of things, flying around, and it was just awesome to see like the A7, the A6, the F-14s, the F-18s, mix around with all that, different stuff, right? The F-111s.
Back then, there was such a diversity of different airframes because everybody was still in the Cold War mentality. Like, we need a different airframe for attack, we need a different airframe for the nuclear mission, we need a different airframe for like this air-to-air superiority, and we need, and gone away, especially in the Navy, where it's just really your COD aircraft, your Hawkeye, and the Super Hornet, now the F-35, but I mean, like, the Air Force is still at least a little diverse, but, it's just a lot that's gone away, and that's what kind of sucks for people of my age, is we are getting into this stuff right when all this was going away. I don't think I have a single photo, or my father took a single photo of a Tomcat at an air show, because, being in Idaho, why would they send a Tomcat to Mountain Home, right? But at least my dad did take some photos of the F-117 at Mountain Home.
Yeah, exactly. I still remember, I went to one of the exercises in Wisconsin last year, 2019, I believe, 2019, where they had the Air Force and the Marines, and did they have the Navy? Or they were just growlers from the Navy. And then they had the local F-16s as well, and the Raptors from Langley. But I was like, the Air Force, one of the squadrons, and then the Marines, one of the squadrons. They had bought like F-35. So the Marines bought the F-35B, the Air Force got the F-35A. But we were kind of like on the, far away from the ramp where they were taxiing out. And I was just kind of like, a bit disappointed, because I was like, hey, does the future look like, F-35s across all the, across Navy, Air Force, and Marines or whatever, and even if there's a joint exercise, yeah, sure, it's a different, marking on a Navy F-35 versus a Air Force F-35, but hey, it just looks the same. It's like the Marines and the Air Force, they had like 12, they had bought the entire squadron down, so they had like 12 F-35s, and they used to launch, and after 3 or 4 F-35s, I was like, should I be just taking like just shots, or should I be doing something else, or should I take video, or whatever. But it was just like one F-35 after the other, and it was just like that. I was like, okay, maybe this is the future.
It really is. It's like I've been thinking about this with the F-35 and its different variants. I think the last aircraft to reach across all the branches with the Navy, Air Force, and the Marines was the Phantom.
Right.
This aircraft is I think it's gonna be just like how the F-4 was, and is how this is a legendary service with the Phantom. I think the F-35 is going to do the exact same thing. And back when the F-35 was like brand new, like if you go out to like Red Flag and we saw an F-35 there, everybody's like, holy crap, right?
Yeah. Right now it's like just saw the same, others or whatever.
And now it's just like, well, F-35 it was like, oh look, a Legacy Eagle, and then think about it.
Yeah, exactly. You're more excited by the Legacy Eagle or something else showing up rather than an F-35. Yeah, exactly, because you just have so much of them right now.
Mm-hmm. But I think the one aircraft that we all agree upon that never gets old is seeing the F-22. I'll shoot the F-22s just forever.
Oh yeah, that is just such an awesome plane.
Oh yeah, it's like you go up to Nellis and I'm like Raptors, and it's like, oh yeah. I mean, I got the same photos at the exact same angle, the exact same aircraft. I've been out there so much, but it's just like it's an F-22.
Right, exactly. And the funny part is like when you said F-22, I remember back in 2018 when I went to China Lake to do an interview with a couple of guys from the BX-9 Vampires. I took 2 days off, so obviously the one day I went down there, the second day I took I went down there, I took the interview, and then the second day was just traveling back home because it takes me almost like 6 hours one way to just go there. So I was like, hey, I have the day off. I would still, go to the canyon, spend most of the day, and then I can start my drive back, and that should be good. So I kind of go up to the canyon, go to the end of the the gravel road, and I'm just sitting there, and I hear noises. I'm like, okay, there's some traffic coming in, which is great. And then I see something like, what the heck are these? And it was like, oh, raptors. I'm like, shit. Like that's my first time, of having raptors in the canyon. And then when the guy goes through, he is in fact he is exactly looking at me. Like he's looking at me sideways, and literally kind of you can see it in the picture. And when I kind of chimp afterwards, and I'm like, holy crap, these are like the raptors from Alaska. So I don't have any of the local raptors ever in my visits at the canyon, but I have a raptor from Alaska.
Oh man. March 2018 is I actually was fortunate to get a raptor in the canyon also. It was a OT bird too, which was super cool. And the pilot's wife got in contact with me, and it was honestly, that family is, I just can't describe how amazing that those two are. And they actually took the photos that I got of him in the canyon, and they're now hanging up in the vault, the Raptor vault at Nellis.
Oh yeah. Like it's always that case, right? Because the same thing like at the 90th guys, the 90th Raptors, 90th Squadron up at Jaybird now. It used to be Elmendorf. But they have they have a lot of my pictures up in the squadron area, the vault, and all that stuff. But it's just great how it kind of how that stuff works out. I just love the fact that there's that appreciation from both sides, right? Of what people do. Like we appreciate what the pilots do, and then the pilots appreciate what we do. It's kind of like a great. Like a unique relation, I would say.
Like my main thing is if I ever do the low levels, either be here in Idaho or wherever else, it's like my main thing isn't for the likes and the views and the follows and stuff. It's to make sure, it's like how Dave said in his interview, we do it so we can give these guys their photos of them doing their thing. Because, that's my main purpose when I do these types of photography. Right. Just the other day, if you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll see I just had one of actually our mutual friends I got out there for her Feeney flight, which is, if you don't know what a Feeney flight is, that's a last flight in a squadron, and before they move on for retirement or something else. I went out there. It was the worst weather you could ever shoot in. We're talking dark gray strike eagle on dark gray skies. If you are an aviation photographer, you're just going to stay home. But because she's one of my best friends out there, I went out there anyways. And just so she has those photos of her doing it one last time out there. And that's what makes it all worth it. And that's what a lot of people don't realize or don't really think about is a lot of people that do this stuff, we do it for the people who are in the aircraft.
Yeah, like I rather feel proud of having my photos up in the walls of the squadron, or the guy's own personal room, or whatever, because hey, he's the reason why the photo happened to be, right?
Exactly. Kind of moving it on real quick. So what is your favorite event or location that you like taking photos at? I mean, whether it be in the air or like at a low level or like even at like Nellis or something like that. Like, kind of what is your favorite one to go
Yeah, I
at?
think the favorite one right now would be like it used to be like Star Wars, because you could just go there unannounced and you can just fish the whole day for whatever traffic came by, and then
Yeah.
it was kind of a good funnel of of funneling all the traffic into that one space over the whole miles of like the whole 2508 complex, right? So I think it would be Nellis, because just for the reasons of accessibility, I can just drive down there. I don't need to like fly down there. It takes me a good amount of 8 to 9 hours to drive down there, but I can still do it right now. And the other thing is, again, kind of Nellis with the red flags and all that is kind of like a what they call a water hole kind of thing for all the international aircraft, right? Because for red flag, whatever, everyone comes to Nellis, they launch from there, they land there, and all that stuff, right? So I think Nellis would be the favorite one right now, just for all those reasons.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. You never know what you can get at Nellis. And going back to the Star Wars Canyon, is you can spend a whole day on the rim of the canyon, and you can get 35, 40 aircraft going through.
I would say, like, when I don't know when you started off, but again, like there are people who again started off way before me. I went to the canyon in 2015, I believe. That was my first year, and I still remember 2015 to 2016 or something like that, or maybe it was, yeah, I think it was 2015. So for those couple of years, it was a damn good day if you had even a double-digit number of passes, like even 10. Like you were like ecstatic,
Yeah.
if you had 10 passes. And then later on, it just exploded. It's like 30 passes was kind of like the norm. And if you had more, then that would be like whatever, icing on the top or whatever. But yeah, it was kind of like really interesting to watch how it went from 10 passes was kind of like a damn good day to 30 passes being a normal day, or at least 20 plus was a normal day.
I think I first went there in February 2017, and the guy who I was with, his first day there was he got one pass. There's a couple of days where I've had just single digit passes, but one guy out there told me, and I love it. I love this saying is, a day at the canyon with no passes is still a better day at the office.
That is true. Like especially I've been there. Like I remember 2018 obviously, because the canyon got shut down afterwards. But I think 2018 I went there with literally zero expectations, and this was just a week before the whole Christmas and all that, right? And I asked a guy who's a regular there. He's like, "Hey, does it even make sense for me to go there?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's kind of the year end. I don't know, But he ended his guidance or his advice with a sentence that still sticks with me. He's like, "Hey, but it's a canyon. You don't know. It might amaze you, right?" And so I went there with literally no expectations. Planning to spend 3 days there. Kind of the last hurrah of the year. And the first day I got like 33 passes. The second day it was all dust storms, so we got like 3 or 4, but they like it the wind was like too turbulent, so they just kind of skimmed the ridge. And then I just decided to go home on the second day because the weather was worse the next day. But it's exactly the thing. Like it's you never know, right? Unless you are there.
Yeah, it's like you never know what you're going to get out there, and it's always worth to go out there and try. Actually, let me rephrase this. It was just going out there to try.
Yeah, exactly. It was.
It really was, and they still had a 2,500 foot out, no, 1,500 feet
1,500
AGL
foot, yeah.
So honestly, don't get your hopes up it's ever going to come back anytime soon. But it was good when it lasted. I mean, obviously, talking with Dave is, Dave's in his discussion, he's done research for years. I've done research for years. Well, it's time to start finding some other places, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean...
Yeah, and he's doing a damn good work on that one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That he has.
Awesome shots. Especially the crisp weather and the lighting and all that. Like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, especially with that background too, like that winter background he's been posting.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yep, exactly.
So we already talked about your dock shoot, which is by far your favorite air-to-air shoot. Kind of, well, what's another kind of? And we talked about Mountain Home 2008. Well, what's kind of something else that you like? Do you think the listener would really like to enjoy and hear about, like something like your other adventures that you've done?
What could be a good one? I don't know. Maybe like at the start of 2020, I was up at. I was in fact across the pond in Barcelona because of my company's European customer conference edition, and I didn't have much like I had dispensed off with my whatever duties and meetings that I had. And I was supposed to come back, I think on Friday, but then one of my friends at Nellis, he had a change of command ceremony on Friday, and I didn't have anything, there on Thursday, so I decided to leave Thursday. And it's just kind of like what you said about like why do we do this, right? It's like the Finny flight that you went of our mutual friend. And I wanted to be there to kind of document his chain of command. So I was like, you know what, I can swing this. Let me do this. So then I started off on Thursday at like whatever 3 o'clock in the morning. My day began when I woke up in the hotel to catch a 6 o'clock flight to Frankfurt. From Frankfurt, I flew back to San Francisco. From San Francisco back home, maybe an hour and a half. Drives back home. And literally I came home, I unpacked my stuff, I repacked a small, bag, got into the shower, did a quick shower, quick change of clothes, got my bag, camera, and I headed out to San Jose Airport. And then I got on the flight to Vegas, so that, I could catch, my friends, and all this on a Thursday. So just imagine the fact that my Thursday began, which is plus 9 hours ahead from here, from PST. It began at like 3 o'clock there, and it ended up at like 9:30 or 10:30 in Vegas. Traveling different, between different time zones, just so that I can, make my friends chain of command. And obviously, it was I think it was the last, no, not the last day. I think it was one of the days of red flag, but it was a Friday. So I caught after his chain of command in the morning, I went out, by the speedway and shot some other stuff, and and went home on Saturday. So again, a great shout out to my wife who's encouraged all these. She calls it an obsession. I call it a hobby, but whatever. That that she supports my crazy things, but that's one of the things maybe. And then I think the other story would be like getting the afterburner shot of the B1 on the last red flag, the 2020, I think 03.
Yes.
I think that would be because that was totally surprise. I was not ready for it, but hey, it just happened. Like I remember going out on one of the nights, And normally with all the red flags, as you also know, like the heavies will go out first. The bombers, the tankers, the AVACs, and all those guys, they will launch first, and then the fighters take off. And that's the same thing which happened. Like all the other heavies took off, the tankers and the AVACs took off, and the fighters started taking off. And this is like pitch black, at I think 9 o'clock, 9:30 or something like that. And I was like, okay, I can't do anything out here with all this pitch black thing. And even I think even in the day we had heard of like, hey, the B1s are not going to do any night launches because they're kind of broke or whatever it is. So I didn't expect them to to even move. And I was not even watching that part of the ramp to see if there is any movement. I was just not expecting any B1s. And at around 9:30, I decided to pack it in. But then I was like, yeah, wait a minute, I'll just spend like the next 5 minutes here just to just watching what happens. And then I could see like a big heavy aircraft that's moving on one of the runways. And it's again pitch black. You can just see the lights and all that. And I was like, okay, what's this? Like in the middle of all these fighters taking off. And then there was a guy beside me, watching with his binoculars. And he's like, oh crap, that's a B1. I'm like, holy crap, that's the B1. And like, I better not screw up. That was kind of the next, the things that flashed in my head. But yeah, that was a great moment. I got some good shots of the four motors, just like flame and all that stuff with a simple with a slight visibility on the airframe. And in fact, like the pilot reached out to me after that, and I gave all those shots to him. And then and that's the other thing that I like with these things, right? Like even though he moved out of the unit, he still made sure that I got like the whole swag from the 9th squad, from the 9th bomb squadron. So yeah, that showed up like sometime later, but it was just awesome. That was one great story.
I remember seeing that, and I think there's some certain groups that were both in, and I think everybody was just like, holy crap, after that shot.
Yeah,
that was
exactly. And even the tribe.com picked it up as well. I ran a story on it.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
I have to ask one final question before we start wrapping her up here. Out of all the Indian Air Force aircraft, which one is your favorite?
Of all the Indians, I would say the one is like kind of the quintessential fighter looks, and that's a MiG-21. It just looks like a fighter, It just looks like a scrawny guy, looking for a fight. And then I think that's for that reason. And the second one might be like a MiG-29. It's just for the design and how the kind of the fuselage blends into the nozzles on the back, and then and all the canopy and all that stuff in the front. I just like that design, the MiG-29.
Okay, I promise you, as I said the last question, I have one last question for you. And then we can start wrapping up. And you can apologize to the wife on my behalf.
No worries.
We talked about your favorite Warbird air-to-air shoot. What about your favorite military air-to-air shoot that you have done?
Military would be the ones with the Aviation photo crew guys. And let's see. I think one of the best ones would be like, I think the one with the F-35, because that was not on the menu. And this for the reason that it was not on the menu. And it was like, it just happened in 2016, I believe, when the F-35s first landed on Dutch soil. They went around on a PR trip across the Netherlands, and on one of those, I think, sorties, we had them for the air-to-air shoot. And I think the weather was a bit crap that day, so we had to go over the clouds. So we like most of the background is just puffy clouds in the background, but I think that would be the favorite shoot, because I didn't think that I would have like an F-35 air-to-air at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, like with great pilots like Ian Knight and Pascal, great pilots like and it was like really worth watching the F-35s maintain formation behind the Skyvan, which is slow. It's not one of the fastest things on Earth. But at one point of time, like you could see the huge deflections on the tail stabs of the F-35s. It was like really, it was kind of fun watching those deflections of how the flight control system is, trying to maintain the attitude of the aircraft at that speed, and with all these controls going kind of going crazy. It was really kind of like a revelation, because in a normal plane, like the pilot would be like trying to move the controls and trying to get them where he wants them to be, and trying all that stuff. But in this case, with all this whole digital flight control system, right, and that's like it's I think it's going overdrive, because he's like, oh, this is this speed, that's this attitude, then I need to move that surface here, that surface there, and hey, suddenly the air is going, going somewhere else, so I need to move that control. And it was just great to see the whole, the flight control laws in action during that time.
That's incredible, dude. You just done so much really cool stuff, and I know you have inspired a lot of other young aviation guys to pursue not just maybe a career in a military, but also just trying to become like a better aviation photographer and kind of be like you. So I mean, yeah, you just taken some absolutely amazing work, and just kind of moving on to the next part, the kind of wrap up stage of this is, like for those young guys that you might have inspired, what's some tips or words of encouragement you can offer them?
Yeah, I would say, just go out there and shoot. I would say, like, try different settings. Don't just keep the same setting for the whole year, and then try to get like sharp, whatever, 30 or 50 shots sharp of the same aircraft of one pass or whatever. Just try to challenge yourself, right? Maybe you want to do panning, and that's what happened at even Red Flag Alaska when I went for the first day when it was media day. The weather was, as you said, it was like 50 shades of grey. There's literally no sun, and I'm like, okay, I can take some shots of with the aperture wide open, but then let me practice panning, because what can I lose? Like I can't overexpose because there's no light, right? So challenge yourself in in trying to maybe like in panning. I would also say try kind of different types of shoots. So it's not like hanging at Nellis the whole year. Maybe you can go to some air show or whatever. Try static, try different angles of a plane which is parked on the static display, right? Maybe do a night shoot with lighting. Light up the aircraft using your normal strobes or whatever, or the flashlights, off camera lighting. So just do different kind of stuff. At least that's what I do, because I just try going into uncharted territory, at least according to like uncharted as per myself, that I haven't been there, and I try to kind of explore that hey, kind of read up on that, try to get a sense of what does that involve, and just try to get into that uncharted territory and see if things work out, obviously, and then travel to different cities or states or maybe even countries, because things are not what they seem, when with what the stereotype is painted, right? And I'll just take like whatever 30 seconds to tell the story, especially about in Russia when I went to the Army 18. One of the days we went out to the tank range, and they have these stadium kind of seating at the tank range, where it's kind of like those rows of seats with gaps in between, right? And I was basically changing a lens because I wanted to shoot something wide angle or whatever. And while changing the lens, a lens cap fell from the seats and it fell down onto the ground. And I was like, shit, I'll get that later. So I was kind of busy in my own world about changing lens and all that and getting it ready. And the tank came and I'm shooting and all that. And then a couple of Russian soldiers, like basic rank, right? Like no officer rank or whatever, just basic, whatever, enlisted rank. They showed up And again, language is a huge problem. Like literally, like I don't understand Russian and they don't understand English. Like not even one word. They came and they kind of like sign language, right? He's like, something fell. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'll just do shooting. I'll take care of it later. And I think they kind of got it. What I kind of signed, did the sign thing. But after that, like 10 minutes after that, one of the guys he came back up again, and in his hand he had my lens cap, and he's like, here you go. And I was like, dude, you didn't have to do it, right? Because it's just a lens cap that fell, from when I was changing the lens, and he didn't have to do it, but he anyway did it. And I was like, that's really cool, because of all the stereotypes, that we are kind of educated on, that hey, that's the communists, the Russians, they are made in a certain way, they think in a certain way, and all that. That's not really there at the basic core of a human being. The tendency, or the natural tendency, is to help. So
Yeah.
it's kind of trying to break across those cultural made up barriers, I would say, is travel, go out the world, have fun, and then again, like, share your stuff, right? If there's some interesting techniques on how you do it, post processing, there's a whole big world out there, and especially in the social media, like Facebook or Instagram, you can see what kind of editing people are using out there, right? So there's so much thing that is like endless. Like, yeah, you can always and I would say that always be a student. Like, never try to aspire to be like a master. Always be a student, because when you're a student, your learning never stops, right? And then yeah, I would just say, like, just challenge everything. Just challenge yourself, your techniques, and yeah, always remember, right? You win some, you lose some. So don't get upset over something that you couldn't get, or it didn't happen, or whatever. There's always another day. There's always other things that you can chase.
Absolutely, dude. And I couldn't agree with you more to say, when you said, just break down those cultural barriers. At the end of the day, everyone is human.
Right.
Everybody has to start to be kind.
Yeah.
Share your stories, be humble, always ask questions. You can never ask too many questions, and there is never a wrong question to ask.
Exactly. And the other thing is, this is like photography, like it's an art, it's not science. So there's nothing, right or wrong about it. It's in the eye of the beholder, right?
Exactly. I think that was absolutely beautiful what you just said, and I couldn't just, guys, seriously, break down those cultural barriers. Go talk to people. I mean, like, you won't know how we're another person's story if you don't talk with them. You don't make that first move.
Yeah, you're just making an image of that person in your brain, and that's your bias.
Hey, also agree, you win some, you lose some, and trust me, we have all lost a lot to get to our little wins.
Exactly. Yeah, don't get upset over small things, and there's so much other things to achieve in life.
On the tail end of that beautifully said statement, we kind of talked about it earlier in the show, but you have your own book and all that. So where can people find your work, like online, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you use? And where can also people help support you by buying your art and your prints and your photos and all that? And your books?
So online, I just have two. One is Facebook. And you can find me on Facebook at Kedar KAP. So that's the first name and the first alphabet of my last name. So Kedar K Alpha Papa. That stands for Aviation Photography. And then on Instagram, it's at Kedar's Clicks. So again, the first name and then Sierra Charlie Lima India X-ray. So Clicks, Kedar's Clicks. And again, if you are interested in buying books and all that. Just ping me on those two forums, and I will get back to you with a link. I am working. In fact, the book is finished. I'm just working on some logistics of the latest of my Bandit series books. I think the The first one I ever did was the Bandits of the Gulf Coast. That was on the VFC 111 at Key West. But that's out of print because it was a different company. And then the recent one is the Bandits of the Mojave on the 64th Aggressor Squadron. And then the latest one, like right now, that's I'm waiting on the logistics, is the Bandits of the Last Frontier. That's the 18th Aggressor Squadron out of Eielson. So those are some of the books that are kind of out there.
Awesome. Well, if you guys are interested, definitely go ping him and go support him, because you do support an amazing photographer and all that. And I just want to say, before we wrap it up for good, thank you for being a great friend to me over these past few years. You have been a really amazing guy to talk to, and just a really, really good person in general. And I'm thankful and so glad that you agreed to come on the show to share your stories. I think a lot of people are really, really going to enjoy what you have.
Anytime, man. Absolutely, anytime for you.
Awesome. And when you're up in Boise, I did promise you a hog spot. So when you're able to come to Boise, we're doing a hog spot.
Yeah, we are.
Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Aviation Spotters podcast. And as always, if you have any questions for the show, and actually any questions for Kedar, shoot me an email, avspotterspodcast@gmail.com. Find me on Instagram @BOISpotter, Twitter @BOISpotter. Go check out the Facebook page. We got some new banner art up there. New year, new banner art. And as always, start using the hashtags. Hashtag Aviation Spotters Podcast. Hashtag AvSpottersPod. It helps me find all those people that should come on the show and talk aviation with me and all that. So please start using the hashtags. And anyway, Kedar, anything else to add before we wrap it up?
Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. All right, guys. Until next time, keep those batteries charged and those cameras ready. And then we'll catch you on another episode of the Aviation Spotters Podcast.